morning, everyone, on Zoom and on YouTube, and welcome to the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax, established in 1837. My name is Jessica Friesen, your music director, and our minister, Norm Harofker, will be on study leave in July and vacation in August. So I will be the coordinator for our summer services. During this time, we will have a variety of services featuring other UU congregations across Canada. Marie-Claude Leroux, who is off until mid-August, is our Director of Religious Exploration. And John Piccolo and Paul Galbraith are both our volunteer technicians this morning. Extra help, it's great. During the service today, the chat function will be open, and I invite you to extend our hospitality by saying hello to anyone that you do not recognize or by leaving a message for us. If you are not already receiving notifications from our church and you would like to receive updates about our activities and services, you can email me at jessicafriesen876@gmail.com. The order of service for today was sent over UU Info Saturday night, so you should have that. And there are no announcements today, but if you do have announcements, you can email me as well, and I will put those in the order of service. So we will be hearing from the Unitarian Universalist Hysteric Society, and we have a prelude. It is by We Shall Be Known by Mamuse, and it's presented by Francisco Ruiz. So I hope you enjoy.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we'll lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. So the summer months are often a time of reduced giving. Your early donations are welcome. They can be made by e-transfer to treasurer@uuch.ca. It'll be on the PowerPoint for you. You can also send a check mailed to the church, and the details are on the screen. So the chalice lighting words today are in your order of service. I'm gonna light the chalice with these words. Every day brings struggle. Every day brings joy. Every day brings us the opportunity to ease the struggle of another. May this flame remind us to carry our light to each other and the world. No, just light the chalice. Thank you, Faith, for lighting our chalice. So the opening hymn is by Matt Meyer from the service we will be using today. He will be singing our opening hymn this morning, and it's two songs that we actually know. So I want you to sing along with him. We're going to be doing Come, Come, Whoever You Are, and When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. It is a combination. So please enjoy this new rendition.
Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come yet again, come. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart, one more, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come yet again, come. Come yet again, come. Come yet again, come.
And once again, I want us all to take a moment to center on the idea that our Sunday services take place in the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The talk these days is about residential schools. We used to have one here in Nova Scotia too. As we all know, this school was in Shubenacadie, on top of the Windy Hill, cold Windy Hill on the curve of the Shubenacadie River. It was founded in February 5th, 1930, long after all the other residential schools in Canada were founded, and it closed on June 22nd, 1967, also after most of the residential schools were closed. And here's the book about the Shubenacadie Residential School by Chris Benjamin. It's not so much a story of what our ancestor settlers did, the most horrendous and terrible things that they did, because it was terrible, to the Mi'kmaq people and to the Mi'kmaq children especially. The book is also about how strong all people had to be and were while living a life of remote poverty and utter frustration in times of gross inequality and unbridled bureaucracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vitska. This is a sacred time in our service, set apart to honor the many sorrows and the many joys that you, the congregation, are living, and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. Today, I will light one candle for all those who are here with us, or in our thoughts who are struggling mentally, physically, financially, and emotionally. And we also light one candle for all the joys that are in the room, the big joys that come along only infrequently, and the little joys that we are blessed by every day, if we are able to see them. I will also light a candle as a sad acknowledgement for all the residential children we have found thus far in BC, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. This is a symbol of our determination to work for reconciliation. Each week, I invite anyone with a joy or sorrow to share at this time to relay their thoughts to me by email. Later, when we stop the live streaming on YouTube and before the coffee hour begins, I will invite anyone else to share a joy or a sorrow and have a candle lit if they would like to do so. I'll be playing number 1057. Go lift it up. The words will be on the screen. Go lift it up. Love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day. Let's do that again. Go lift it up. Love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day. May the joys and sorrows, both those acknowledged here this morning and those held in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, weave us together in the interdependent fabric of community. So the reading today will be done by comedian Trevor Noah. He was born in South Africa and he's of mixed race, born during the apartheid. So his book is called Born a Crime: Stories from a South African Childhood. Liz James in the reflection had read these words, and so I thought I could share them with you. People always lecture the poor. Take responsibility for yourself. Make something of yourself. But with what raw materials are the poor to make something of themselves? People love to say, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. What they don't say is, and it would be nice if you gave him a fishing rod. That's the part of the analogy that's missing. So now we will hear from Liz James from the UU Hysterical Society. This is entitled, My Mzungu Eyes Are Improving.
When my friend Selesh was joining our congregation in Saskatoon about 10 years ago, I was one of the committee members charged with orienting him to our congregation. Selesh grew up in Masai Mara in Kenya. He grew up exactly as many generations of Maasai before him did. No English, no reading, no writing, no electricity, unlimited exercise, time with friends, fresh air, sunshine. In early adulthood, he fell in love with a Canadian who was visiting, and they had a family, and that's how he came to be in a church in the snowy depths of Canada, where he and I became friends. I remember at the newcomer member dinner, he was joining our church, and I was showing him the chart of how our church works. It had, the board and the president and the voting and the committee on ministry, all the stuff. And I showed him this very complex chart because I felt it was important that he be well informed about our governance. And he looked carefully at the chart for a long time. He listened to my explanation, and then he shook his head. He said, "Nope." I said, "Really? This is how we make decisions?" And he said, "No. Usually the mothers make the decisions while you are watching the children and talking. I have seen it." And I said, "Yeah, but there's also this." And he looked at it for a little bit longer, and then he said slowly, "This looks like a lot of work." I explained that it is, but it's important that we do it to create community. "You don't have to do this for community," he said. "How you have community is you bring many people together, and then they make community. Many people make community without these," he struggled for the word, "committees." It was like he was trying to explain to me that 2 + 2 = 4 because that's what 4 is. It doesn't need a committee to be 4, it's just 4. When we first arrived in Kenya 3 years ago, the first thing Selesh did was drive us to the plaque at the center of his village, haul us all out of the Jeep to stand around it. The plaque marked the death of a white tourist a few years back. We read it. It was in English. It told the story of a man waking up in the early hours of the morning, heading out for a walk, and being mauled by a wild elephant. The plaque, as I read it, was about the danger of African elephants. Selesh saw the cause of death a little differently, and he explained to me, "This man had a Maasai guard, like you have a Maasai guard. This man did not listen to his Maasai guard and went for a short walk by himself, and an elephant killed him. When Mzungu people do not listen to their Maasai guard, they die right away." Mzungu is the word they used for white people, and it really came in handy for me. Every time I couldn't see something like a nest of birds 3 feet away from my face that the guide was pointing to, I'd point to my eyes and I would go, "Mzungu." And every time I did something silly, I'd use the word Mzungu, and they'd all shrug like, "What are you going to do?" Being Mzungu meant being under constant supervision in case I decided to pet a snake or cuddle a lion cub or something like that. Mzungu could not be left unattended except in their tent with a tour guide standing outside to make sure they didn't do something crazy like wake up early and go for a walk by themselves. I often wondered about my Maasai guard, who followed me everywhere, carrying this spear that to my eyes was basically a pointy stick. His job was to protect me from lions, and he was paid reasonably well for it. Reasonably well for a no-lion day. Because I couldn't shake the feeling that if a lion did approach, his wages would no longer be sufficient for the task. I asked Selesh about this. "How do we know he wouldn't run away?" I said. Selesh looked at me like I had a cabbage for a head. "You were under his protection," he answered. "Yeah, but he doesn't know me or care about me, so why would he?" "He's Maasai," Selesh answered. "You're under his protection." There was a pause, and then Selesh repeated, "He's Maasai," as though this should explain it all. That night, my sleep was interrupted by what I can only describe as a moaning, growling kerfuffle of noises. I was nestled into the tent I'd mentioned earlier. It was a very nice tent, nicest you've ever been in, had a flush toilet. Was, though, still made of canvas. Thicker canvas than in Canada, sure, but not lion-level thick. not even scissors level thick. I tried to tell myself if I was in the tent, the lion would have no idea I was there. That required a lot of mental discipline to keep believing. And it wasn't just the lions that had arrived. Some other creature was out there, some new African creature I'd never heard before, making this terrified, mysterious, bleating, moaning sound. And there were the sounds of men, several men, yelling to each other in the local language. And I lay perfectly still, with the dark inside the canvas walls so absolute it felt like a washcloth covering my face, and I swallowed my terror. And in the morning, I learned that the mysterious new animal was, in fact, a cow. I've never heard cows being afraid. Turns out when cows are afraid for their lives, they don't say moo moo like in the old MacDonald song. Afraid cows don't sound like moo moo, much like humans afraid for their lives don't sound like, hi there, pleased to meet you. The cow had wandered away from the herd in a nearby village, and a team of Maasai men had tracked it, and they found it eventually, but they found it at the exact same moment that the lion found it, which was after dark, and we're talking like can't see your hand in front of your face kind of dark. The noises I heard were them stepping between the cow and the lion and shooing it away with their weapons, which, I cannot emphasize this part enough, were basically machetes and pointy sticks, used largely without the benefit of sight. They won this battle. Lions are afraid of Maasai men, and it eventually retreated. Selesh says this is usually how it goes. Lions are afraid of the Maasai and will kill a Maasai warrior very rarely. He then immediately qualified kill a Mzungu on sight, though, every time, no reason at all, before I got any ideas. I was too hung up on this word rarely to absorb his lecture. Wait, I said, you said very rarely, like meaning not never? Meaning sometimes someone does die? Not often, said Selesh, which is not the same as never. I couldn't imagine risking my life like that, I said. Well, they're Maasai, Selesh answered, like it was a complete sentence. Then, a Maasai can't give up on his cow. Suddenly it all slid into place. It wasn't just about the one cow. Suddenly my Mzungu eyes could see the big picture. It's been explained to me that Maasai have survived for centuries through their reputation for bravery and self-sufficiency and honor. They have a reputation for never giving up, and the fact that everyone knows that is one of their greatest assets. The lions do not tangle with the Maasai. The neighboring Kikuyu tribe do not tangle with the Maasai. Even Mzungus didn't tangle with the Maasai, and the Mzungus tangled with everybody. In modern times, Mzungus are not adversaries in the same way. It's quite complicated. They are a threat still, but they're also tourists who bring lots of money, which they exchange for a chance to look at wild animals safely. And so the Maasai reputation is still a communal asset. The reason my guard would protect me at all costs was because if one Maasai lets one tourist die, everyone's reputation suffers. The whole region's economy gets put into jeopardy. Everyone's livelihood and independence is at stake. He'll protect me, I said, because I'm like a cow to him? Selesh nodded. A Maasai can't give up on his cow, because a Maasai can't give up on his reputation. Independence. His Maasai identity is how generations of his people have survived. My Mzungu eyes were improving. But I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach because I wasn't there as a tourist on safari. I wasn't there for the animals. I was there working on behalf of the Altumo Well Project. The Altumo Well Project began in my home community, raising money for a well in Selesh's village. Over time, the well had grown into a garden and a community center, and there was a budding relationship between the two communities. And I was here as a part of that relationship to talk to the Maasai about some challenges to their way of life. In recent years, the Kenyan government had divided the land and deeded it to individual Maasai. So the Maasai couldn't move to chase the rainy season anymore. This was taking a toll on the livestock, half of which had died in the last year. Also, without the regular wars with the Kikuyu, the Maasai population was growing, and finite land can't sustain a large population on a livestock-based diet. Add to that the challenges of global warming, which were huge for the Maasai and hitting them really hard. And it was clear that the outside world was finally reaching the Maasai, and they needed help in adapting to it. It had sounded really simple back home in Saskatoon. As the saying goes, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. I was here to tell the Maasai that they needed new skills and guide them in their transformation. When the task was in front of me, though, it felt totally different. I was just one more white person arriving to tell the Maasai about how they needed to give up their cows and embrace the future, one more colonizer, telling them that this time was different, just like every colonizer had told them before me. I was going to say this like I was some kind of expert, shadowed by a Maasai guard who had to follow me to keep me from trying to stick a green mamba in my mouth or some other idiotic thing. Here, Mzungus were just cash cows you had to keep from killing themselves long enough so they could get their little snaps for Instagram or whatever it was and go home again. Teach them to fish. What kind of arrogance was that? As we rode to the well site on the day of the big meeting, I felt a new feeling of unease in my stomach. I found myself thinking back to the advice of my friend Fulgence and hoping to find something to hold on to. Reverend Fulgence and Dadijimana reminded me so much of my friend Celeste, which is a little strange because they are from polar opposite backgrounds. Fulgence went to boarding school, had a degree, lived in the city, worked for not-profits in addition to running his church on the side, as I talked about in the story for all ages. He went on to found the Unitarian Church in Burundi, later a UU not-for-profit in Canada, so he grew up at the center of colonialism. Celeste grew up in one of the last pockets of successful resistance to it. Even though they were very different, the three of us met anyways for a meeting before my trip. Fulgence brought all kinds of experience in not-for-profits and community development, working with groups from many regions of Africa. And Celeste brought in-depth knowledge of the Maasai and all his relationships within the region, and I brought... Well, I was the president of Ultumo at the time, and I knew a lot about committee structures, Robert's Rules, great with Robert's Rules. There are not many statements you can make about the entire continent of Africa that are true all over, but not a fan of Robert's Rules might be one of them. So I mostly listened. And the meeting that unfolded was nothing like I was used to. Fulgence asked question after question, detailed things about everything from how the Maasai chose whose hut was built where to the ratio of goats to cows. He frequently expressed admiration for the Maasai, whose spirit is admired all over Africa, but he mostly just listened. And at the end, when Celeste asked for advice, Fulgence said, "The Maasai have always solved their own problems. The most important thing is for the Maasai to continue to believe that they can solve their own problems. The most important thing is to listen and help as you are asked to help in only the ways that you are asked to help." I thought about this during the Jeep ride. I thought about this as the women filed in for our meeting, as I cooed at babies and sipped at tea and offered granola bars from my bag. I observed that every woman arriving put 10 shillings in the coffer, and it was 20 if you were late. I asked questions through my translator. I learned that husbands take the money if the women try to save up individually, so they have an investment club where they pool tiny amounts to buy one big thing, like a goat for one woman or school fees for another. They each take turns according to their need and their situation. It was easy to do, as Fulgence had said, to express admiration for the ingenuity and the perseverance of these women. It was hard, though, to bring the conversation around to the subject of cows. Especially because even with my Mzungu eyes, I could not escape the clear fact that I wasn't the person to teach these women to fish. I could see the big picture that the cow thing wasn't going to work, but I was coming face to face with my own incompetence in their world, and I had no illusions anymore that I had a better alternative to offer. An older woman took a breath to speak. "The cows," she told me, "aren't working. There are too many people, there's not enough land or water, the herds are dying. It's not going to work for very much longer to live this way." Of course they already knew. Of course. They were living in the middle of it. "We try to sell things at the market," the woman continued, "but we have to borrow what we sell, and that's very expensive as a way to run a store. We know how to make honey, and the resorts are willing to buy it from us, but it costs money to make it sanitary for tourists and to package it properly. We need you to talk to the white mothers and ask them to help us." Of course they had a plan. They didn't need me to teach them how to fish. These women already knew how to fish, they just didn't have the fishing rods. The amounts for each project that the women were planning were in the hundreds of dollars. I wrote down their stories, I took their pictures, and I ran the simplest and easiest crowdfunding campaign of my life. The white mothers were moved by the story. Money poured in. We took the money, we used it to fund projects as a microloan, but with a cool catch. When the loan got paid back, it didn't get paid back to us. It got paid back to the community, and the council would decide who would borrow the money the next time and what it would be spent on. In this way, it could transform the whole village. But it transformed me too. I come from a family that prizes education, and when I was a kid, I was taught that I was pretty smart. I grew up in the 80s. I was told to finish my food because there were starving children in Africa, and I absorbed this idea that the reason they were starving was because they didn't know what we in North America knew. They didn't make as good decisions as we could because they needed education. Throwing that line of thinking away was one of the best decisions I ever made. Understanding that people are experts in their own contexts, or at the very least that I am not an expert in their context, has transformed my ability to help. There are solutions that my Mzungu eyes can't see, and it's okay not to be the wise person in the room. Now when I offer my voice or my financial resources, I look for solutions that are led by the people who are facing the problem. I assume that they know better than I do what's needed. And I've seen firsthand over and over again how much farther resources stretch when you spend them in this way. I expected this transformation to be humbling, maybe even painful. I expected that coming to understand my limited expertise and giving up power would be hard. But it's been the opposite. It's been freeing. It's painful to try to act with wisdom you don't have, and it's a lot of work, and it feels broken. And it leads to all this cumbersome process. I find myself thinking back to that night when I showed Selesh the chart of our congregational structure, how he shook his head and then said, "You don't need all that to have community, you just put people together and community appears." I don't believe it's that simple. In most North American contexts, I think there are community building skills Selesh uses without even realizing he has them, because he learned them as a child, things I didn't learn. One of those skills is a kind of power-sharing partnership, where each person finds the area that is theirs to be a steward of. This is better than the way I learned to do it. It creates better decisions, and it leaves more time for relationships. I'm telling you this story today partly because I know you have your own decisions to make about how you use your power in the world, but also because I believe the support we provide overseas as Unitarian Universalists is crucial, and that it's strongest when we are very aware of our Mzungu eyes. But the biggest reason is because I've used what I've learned from the Maasai over and over again in my life here. Being aware of what I can't see. Offering my opinion on decisions only after I've asked myself if I'm the wisest person to speak on the issue, what I have to offer. And putting relationships before process. Above all, leaving space for the connections that are not as simple as Selesh made them sound, but a lot simpler than I made them look with my chart. The best part of realizing what you don't know, I've found, is it allows space for you to learn and to form more honest connections, and to share power, and to keep processes down to only what is needed, leaving room to make a priority of human connection and a priority of building real community. My Mzungu eyes are improving.
I hope you enjoyed that. I very much enjoyed that. I watched it 5 times. Just because I liked it so much. So I have chosen Humble Heart by Jess Ray for the interlude. And I chose this because I thought our Mzungu eyes should be humble as well. So please enjoy. I want a humble heart. Oh, how I have so much to learn. I want a humble heart. Oh, how I have so much to learn. I want a humble heart. Oh, how I have so much to learn. Oh, how I have so much to learn. Because pride, it isn't worth it. It makes me lonely, leaves me stranded. When I never wanted to be alone. Oh, and it'll all be alright over bread and wine. Would you come Oh, how I have so much to learn. Because pride, it isn't worth it. It makes me lonely, leaves me stranded. When I never wanted to be alone. Oh, and it'll all be alright over bread and wine. Would you come and dine with me? And let's gather round the table and share stories till the sun goes down, and secrets till the stars fill the sky. And we'll laugh about tomorrow, and we'll drown in all our sorrows in the joy of being side by side. Oh, I want a humble heart. Oh, how I have so much to learn. I want a humble heart, yeah. Oh, how I have so much to learn. I want a humble heart. Oh, how I have so much to learn. Oh, how I have so much to learn. Thank you. So I'm excited to present our closing hymn. They add a little jazzy touch to the first hymn we heard called When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. So the music directors of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton have done this piece for us. It's a long name. Their names are Bob Nicole and Barry Hall. So please sit back, sing at home, and I hope you enjoy.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, yeah, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other. when our heart is in a holy place.
When our heart is in a holy place. It's hard not singing. So thank you again for joining us. This was our first Sunday service in summer. That's right. So I just want to let you know that our next Sunday service is going to be led by Jessica Rodello, Reverend Jessica Rodello, from the Grand River Unitarian Universalist congregation. So that is being done next week. So tune in for that. And I will now extinguish our chalice. Thank you all who attended our service here in the sanctuary by Zoom or by YouTube. I will say goodbye to those who joined us by YouTube now as we end our live streaming. For those who joined by Zoom, in a few minutes, we will return to sharing joys and sorrows, followed by our virtual coffee hour. Thank you again, and the streaming service will now end.